anybody to know, but Mr. Studs Muffin, a student at the University of Wisconsin-Plattsburgh, didn't care. He wrote an article about his affair, and now the professor is suing him.
It's the case of Professor Sharon Slott versus Mr. Studs Muffin. We'd now like the parents and the family of all the participants to please rise. We'd like to thank you all for coming. We know you all had to drive quite a ways, some from Milwaukee, some even from New York. Thank you very much for coming.
We would also like to take this opportunity to extend a warm round of appreciation to the following who helped make this night possible. As I read your name, please stand and get the recognition that you deserve. The Honorable George S. Curry, Grant County Circuit Court Judge. The Honorable Randall Neig, Mr. Lloyd Rundy, Educator Tom Osting, Dr. Robert Friedrich, Dr. Mitty Nimox, the Department of Communications Chair, Dr. Virgil Kufal, Ms. Becky Troy, Ms. Cynthia Vondra, the UW-Platteville Physical Plant, Mr. Miles Genthy, members of the Department of Communications, Matthew Momartz, James Stelfield, and Colleen Garty. Let's give them a warm round of applause.
It's sex,
Lies,
and midterms. Charge of the jury, I make sure they're not influenced by the plaintiffs, the defendants, or anyone in the audience. This trial is not a play. One side does not know what the other side is doing. You don't know, and I don't know. The witnesses are playing characters, and the dialogue is not rehearsed. The subject matter does deal with sexuality, so if you're sensitive, you're being warned ahead of time. Parental discretion is advised. We hope you enjoy this trial as the Communication Law class presents the case of Professor Sharon Scott and Studs Muffin. be resolved presiding, the Circuit Court of Grace County is now in session.
You may be seated. Bailiff, would you please call tonight's calendar?
Your Honor, tonight's case is Professor Sharon Slott versus Mr. Studs Muffin and others, with the countersuit Mr. Studs Muffin versus Professor Sharon Slott.
Welcome, jury. Thank you for taking your time this evening to do your patriotic duty by taking time away from your family and your work. It is the special duty of the jury to scrutinize and weigh the testimony of witnesses and to determine the effect of the evidence as a whole. You are the sole judges of the credibility of the several witnesses and the weight and credit to be given to their testimony. In determining such weight and credit, you should, as to the several witnesses, consider their interest or lack of interest in the result of this trial, their conduct and demeanor on the witness stand, their bias or prejudice, if any has been shown, the clearness or lack of clearness of the recollection, their opportunity for observing and knowing the matters and things given in evidence by them, and the reasonableness of the testimony given. You should give careful consideration to the inherent reasonableness or absence of it, of any testimony given by any witness, and consider the circumstances that certain things were done or were not done, or that certain things were said or were not said. You should take into consideration also all other facts and circumstances appearing on the trial which either tend to support or discredit the testimony of the witness, and then give to the testimony of each witness such weight and credit as you believe is fairly entitled to receive. Are the attorneys for the plaintiff ready?
We are, Your Honor. Your Honor, if I may, I would move to dismiss this case under Wisconsin Statute 895.05 parens 2, which requires your plaintiff to give at least 1 week's notice to the paper before filing the suit.
Would both counsel please approach the bench? Okay, you may take your seat. I'm sorry, counsel. You have been overruled. The motion has been denied because of lack of pretrial evidence. We must continue with the case. Are the attorneys for the plaintiff ready?
We are, Your Honor.
You may give your opening statements.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Your Honor.
I am Kristen Koka, along with my esteemed colleagues, Steph Stotts and Mike Keeney. We are the attorneys for the plaintiff. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Friday morning, cup of joe and the front page. Suddenly, you wake up to your face staring back at you and read, he immediately grabbed my hand and led me to a janitor's closet. We entered, closed the door, and had sex. What is your reaction? Hey, I made the front page! Or total outrage? This is exactly what happened to the plaintiff, Professor Sharon Slott, and she was outraged, as she should be. Her privacy has been invaded. She admits having sex with her former student, the defendant. But whose business is it? As a Wisconsin resident, she is protected under State Statute 895.50, which states, the plaintiff, a private citizen, does have her right of privacy in matters such as this. Federal court case ruling enhances this. New York federal court case, Gardner versus Triangle Publishing, ruled, even if a person is a public figure, it does not destroy that person's total right of privacy, as the defense is going to claim. The 1992 verdict of City News and Novelty Incorporated versus the City of Waukesha, Wisconsin, restates the Wisconsin statute by upholding the 14th Amendment of right of privacy as encompassing and protecting personal intimacies. This case is very similar to the one you will be hearing tonight. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, 1992 verdict of City News and Novelty Incorporated versus the City of Waukesha, Wisconsin restates the Wisconsin statute by upholding the 14th Amendment right of privacy as encompassing and protecting personal intimacies. What could be more intimate than the published information about the plaintiff? Now, the defense will claim that the right of privacy is not an absolute right. They will tell you it protects only the ordinary sensibility of an individual and that their right does not exist with respect to the dissemination of news and news stories. Is it newsworthy when you have sex? How about you? Or you? Any of you, for that matter. Please. Why then is it news when Professor Sharon Slatt has sex? Two consenting adults engaging in sex is not newsworthy. If it is, ladies and gentlemen, expect to see your name and face on tomorrow's front page. The plaintiff, Professor Sharon Slatt's privacy has been invaded, and libelously so, with comments made in the article. Studs Muffin, the defendant, did this purposefully with intent to harm her. If it were truly newsworthy and no harm was meant, he would have left particular names out. We will prove the defendant, Studs Muffin, invaded the plaintiff's privacy, published libelous statements, and is a media figure. On top of this, Studs Muffin is countersuing for slander with no justifiable reason, which will be brought out in testimony. Upon proving the facts of this case, you, the jury, will inevitably find for our client, Professor Sharon Slatt, under Wisconsin Statute 895.50, and reward the plaintiff damages for mental anguish, court fees, punitive damages, and other just relief. For the next 2 hours, put yourselves in Professor Sharon Slatt's shoes. Will they be comfortable?
Are the attorneys for the defense ready?
We are, Your Honor.
You may give your opening statement.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, myself, Allison Schendel, along with Erica Rideout and Jeannie Hines, we will represent the defense. On February 12th, there was an article published in a newsletter entitled Our Voice. The article was published by our defendant, Studs Muffin, who is also the editor of the newsletter. What Mr. Muffin wrote in the newsletter was true, and he was concerned because this had gone on too long, the sexual actions that Professor Slatt had been doing with other students. In that article, Professor Slatt's credibility is not being questioned. What was printed was the truth. Our client, Mr. Studs Muffin, has been labeled as a liberal and a leftist. This is because he is constantly attempting to try and change the inconsistencies and problems that there are in the system as a whole. Tonight, we will prove to you that the article written in Our Voice on February 12th in no way invaded Professor Slatt's privacy. Under the Wisconsin Statute 895.50, Muffin has the freedom to communicate true facts through the media. Professor Slatt's privacy was not unreasonably violated. The case precedent, Wisconsin versus Peck in 1988, ruled that the right to privacy is not absolute, since it may be weighed by societal interests. The article in question also stated true facts. In 1986, the Schaefer versus State Bar case of Wisconsin was appealed. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a private figure plaintiff who was suing a media defendant for publishing a defamatory statement, such as Professor Slatt is, cannot recover damages without showing that the statement at issue is false. Knowing this, it will become obvious to you, as jury members, that Mr. Muffin has not violated any laws. What was reported in the article was the truth, and therefore, Professor Slott has no case of libel against the defendant. Defamatory matter is defined in the Wisconsin Statute 94201 as anything which exposes the other to hatred, contempt, ridicule, degradation, or disgrace in society or injury in his profession or occupation. Mr. Studsmuffin is also suing, he has a countersuit against Professor Slott. This is because there was a radio spot that Professor Slott aired on. What she said was very nasty towards our client and was uncalled for in every case, but we'll prove that to you later tonight. As a jury, it is your responsibility to decide this case on the facts and to do your best to be non-judgmental towards the plaintiff and also the defendant. Thank you.
The attorneys for the plaintiff may call their first witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiffs would like to call Professor Sharon Slott to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Please state your name and address for the court.
My name is Sharon Slott. I live at 970 Plattsburgh, Wisconsin, 53800.
Professor Slott, are you currently enrolled in classes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what sort of program are you in?
I'm going for my doctorate.
Approximately how many hours per week do you study?
At least between 20 to 25.
What is your current grade point average?
Objection, Your Honor. This is immaterial to the case.
Your Honor, I'm trying merely to establish a character of our witness.
Establish it fast. Overruled.
It's a 4.0.
Where do you study most frequently?
I always study in my office.
Tell me about the night of February 5th, 1993.
Okay, I was studying in my office as usual. It was about 6:30 and there was a knock on my door. I opened it up and there was a former student of mine, Mr. Muffin, and he asked if he could come in and talk about graduate school since he knew I had already attended it, and also he wanted to know about career opportunities once he graduated.
Okay. Did the conversation ever get personal?
It did.
Objection, Your Honor. She's leading the witness.
Sustained. Please rephrase the question.
What sort of conversation was made in your office that evening?
Well, after we discussed the career opportunities and he decided that graduate school was more the option he was looking at, I was telling him about how it's important to consider significant others when attending schools. He told me he was in a very deep relationship and that he wanted to stay close to that person. And I told him how important it was to consider that person when making that decision, because when I went away to school, my husband and I were separated for a little bit. I commuted, and it was the beginning of the destruction of our marriage.
And then how did the sexual encounter with Studsmuffin begin?
Well, I was talking about my divorce, and he came over and he was rubbing my hand. Then he started to rub my arm, and then he started to give me a hug, and then we were kissing, and this all happened very quickly. And the next thing I knew, we were having sex.
What was the sex like?
Objection, Your Honor. This is immaterial. Who cares what the sex was like? She had sex with him. That's all we need to know.
Your Honor, we're here today about an article that appeared in a newsletter about the same topic, sex. He is...
But we're here to discuss the article, not what happened, not how it was.
This information is vital...
Sustained. Please strike the question.
After you had this conversation, what happened?
Your Honor asked and answered. She said after the conversation, they had sex.
Sustained, counselor. Slott. Sometime today, counselor?
Yeah. Okay. Do you consider yourself a public figure?
No, not. I may be in the limelight because of my profession and my awards that I've won, but I'm definitely a private citizen, and it doesn't make me any different from anybody else.
What is your opinion of the newsletter Our Voice?
Well, I don't care for it at all, obviously, which is why we're here today. I think it's not, they don't check their sources. They don't fully follow through with stories. And basically,
How does this witness know these are true facts?
because they never came to me to find out.
Are
They
you
were part of it.
Overruled.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit Number 1, the newsletter Our Voice, which includes the article that Studs Muffin wrote that is damaging to the plaintiff.
Your Honor, we would like to object to the rest of the article and have the jury just look at the article done by Studs Muffin.
Sustained, the jury will read only the article pertaining to this case. The jury will also have time during deliberation to read the article in its entirety.
Professor Slott, would you read for the court the first paragraph of the newsletter?
Some professors, like Sharon Slott at the University of Wisconsin-Plattsburgh, are unprofessional, sleazy, and weak, trading sexual favors for higher grades, according to research on the part of Our Voice staff members.
Thank you. What is your reaction towards this?
I was completely outraged. After this Studs Muffin and I had our encounter, we discussed that it was the biggest mistake of our entire lives and that we should just drop it and never talk about it again. So I thought it was completely over with, and obviously it was not when I received the newsletter.
Okay, why do you feel your complaint is legitimate?
My complaint is legitimate because he never came to me and asked my side of the story. It's not true. None of it is true.
How have your students and coworkers reacted towards you since the newsletter was published?
Objection, Your Honor, she's leading the witness.
I strike the question. Since Since the newsletter was published, what has happened in relationships with your coworkers and your students?
Well, I usually have full classes for this every semester that I've ever taught here, and the enrollment for next semester is not even a third full.
Have you had sex with any other students besides Studs Muffin?
Absolutely not.
Was that you who called into the gripe line?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you do it to hurt Studs Muffin?
Not at all. Nobody takes the gripe line seriously. The gripe line is exactly that, a gripe line, with people call for their frustrations and gripes, and it was a complete joke.
Do you feel that you damaged enough of Stud Muffin's reputation for him to be suing you for slander?
Not at all. First of all, that is a one-time thing, so people would have had to have been listening to it at that exact moment to hear it. They don't have a high listening audience anyway.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Professor Slott, you said that none of it was true. You just 2 seconds ago, a minute ago, you said none of it was true.
Correct.
But you just testified that it was true that you did have sex with Stud Muffin,
He was a former student,
meaning
meaning he wasn't a student.
he was a former student. He's still a student now, but he's not in one of your classes.
Correct.
So can I ask what you're trying to get at? You're saying that you did have sex with him, but in the article, it's not true because he's still not a student? Here. May I ask who initiated the kissing?
He did.
Studs Muffin initiated the kissing.
It all happened very fast. It is kind of hard to
Well,
tell.
then why did you decide to sleep with Studs Muffin?
Objection, Your Honor. She's arguing with the witness.
Overruled, the witness will answer.
It wasn't a decision. It was a mistake. It just happened. It was not a decision.
Since you're studying so hard for your doctorate and teaching half full classes now, do you feel that you're having some emotional problems, that maybe you were just in a weak moment, and since you're no longer married to Carl Slett, that a warm, touching man in your office led you to have sex with him?
Objection, Your Honor. She's asking the witness for speculation, and this was already stated in the
Your
affidavit.
Honor, I'm just trying to state a little situation here, you know. Is she feeling weak? They've already stated she's been studying for hours. She has classes. Maybe, you know, a nice man coming in and touching her and kissing her and talking to her. I'm just trying to put a little situation here.
It's been stated.
Overruled, the witness will answer the question.
It was just a mistake. It was not something that was planned.
Why did you decide to divorce your husband, Carl Slott?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy.
I think it has all the relevancy. She says that they got split up in time. You know, was she unfaithful to
Her
her
divorce
husband?
from Carl Slott is not the issue. The issue is the defamatory and invasion of privacy remarks made by Mr. Studs Muffin.
Sustained, counsel will break the question.
Professor Slott, you dropped out of high school. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
And can you elaborate and tell me why you dropped out of high school?
Because I had absolutely no ambition. It was a rough period of my life, and I thought that was best for me to do.
And that's when
And-
you started to work at
Walgreens.
So, you dropped out of high school, you started working at Walgreens, you met Carl, you got married, got your undergraduate, your master's, and now you're working on your doctorate. May I ask how you made your way up the scale? Did you sleep with your professors to make it up the scale?
No, I did not. Carl changed my life.
Carl is the mystery man of your life.
Carl is my ex-husband.
I mean, he brought you from your no ambition up to getting a
Objection,
doctorate.
Your Honor. Carl is not on the stand.
Sustained.
Did any of your professors have, as it is, quotes in the sex lies and midterms, A for a lay grading scale?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant what her other colleagues do.
I
It's
was
speculation.
just wondering, perhaps maybe she learned how to give Studs Muffin an A by
What's the point?
getting
Maybe she could wonder on her own time, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Professor Slott, I have one more question for you. How'd you feel about having sex with Studs Muffin?
It was the biggest mistake of my life.
And you say that you never had sex with any other students.
Absolutely not.
Are your classes mostly men or women? When they were full, that is.
It was about even,
Half and half.
more or less. I mean, different classes, different enrollment.
Do you feel any treatment different from the men in the class versus the women in the class?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation on her part. Who cares?
Merely stating. Professor Slott, could I ask you what the grading range was?
Objection, Your Honor. That's confidential material of no relevancy to this court.
Confidential? I don't think the grades are confidential. Parents get to see grades. Registrar's office get to see grades. Friends see grades. I don't think, we're not talking police records here.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Sharon, you have said that you have not slept with any other students. Is this true?
That is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Professor
Slot, have you had sex with any former students?
Objection, Your Honor. She is asking for new testimony on a recross.
I don't think so at all. Ms. Stotts asked students, I think it's a general term, former.
Already.
Sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Can you call your second witness?
The plaintiff would like to call Carl Slot to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Please state your name and address for the court.
Carl Slot, 193 Photo Drive, Plattsburgh, Wisconsin.
Carl, what is your profession?
I'm a truck driver.
And what company do you work for?
United Van Lines.
How many years have you worked for United Van Lines?
15 years.
Are you successful in your career?
Yes, very.
What is your work schedule like?
Your Honor, who cares? This is irrelevant.
Your Honor, I'm merely trying to develop the character of our witness.
Sustained.
How long have you known Sharon?
Since I was about 19, she was working at Walgreens when I met her. I was living down there in Milwaukee at the time, and I happened to go there and met her. We dated for about 6 years, and then we got married.
As the court knows, you and Sharon are divorced. What is the reason for your divorce from Sharon?
Well, since I was on the road all week from Monday to Friday, and only having Saturday and Sunday off, I found that our careers conflicted. She had different goals in mind. So I decided that it wouldn't be good to spend only 10 hours a week on the average with her. So we decided to have a divorce.
Okay, it is stated in your affidavit that you are now remarried. When did you get remarried?
A year ago,
How did you meet your current wife?
at church.
It is also stated in your affidavit that you have no children. Why?
Since I'm on the road so much, I figured that since I want to have quality time to spend with children if I had any.
Okay, how often do you see your ex-wife Sharon?
Probably every Sunday at church.
Does your wife, Crystal Coel Slot, what does she think of your current relationship with Sharon?
Your Honor, this is immaterial. What does it have to do with the case at hand?
I strike the question. Would you say that Crystal is jealous of Sharon?
No.
What do you think about Sharon's career?
I think she's a very highly respected person in her field. She's a very honest, very open person, very intellectual type of person.
Did you see the newsletter?
Yes, I did. It was,
Your Honor, he's answering the narrative. He's just supposed to answer with a yes or no.
Okay, fine. And he did. What were the circumstances when you saw the newsletter?
well, Sharon gave me a call one night. And she was over at her office when she first received the letter. And she was very disturbed. For some reason, she asked me to come over to her office. So I drove over to her office, and she showed me the letter.
Okay. Do you think that the statements in the newsletter were true?
No.
Do you feel that Sharon Slot is unprofessional, sleazy, and weak?
No.
Have you ever heard accusations of this type before?
No.
Why do you think Sharon confided in you about the newsletter?
Like I said, me and her have been friends since we were 19. Me and her have become very close, and we've just always been friends.
Another aspect of the case involves a tape from the Groip line. Did you hear the call?
No.
Do you think that the statements made regarding Sharon could possibly hurt her career?
Objection, Your Honor. If he has not heard the gripe line, how can he make an opinion on it?
This is in reference to the article in the newsletter. Overruled.
Yes, I think it can hurt her career. It would go ahead and make her peers look down on her pretty much. And just pretty much disgrace her where she works.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Good evening, Mr. Slot. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Good. Now, Mr. Slot, could you tell the court, were you subpoenaed to be here to testify here? Or are you here on your own free will because you want to help out your good friend and ex-wife? You want to help her out? Were you subpoenaed or are you here on your own free will?
I was subpoenaed.
Okay. Could you repeat for me how exactly long you have known Sharon Slot?
Since I was 19.
Okay. And how many years did you date?
6 years.
And how many years were you married?
We were married for 7 years.
Married for 7 years. That's a really long time, and that's a really long time. Wouldn't you agree?
Objection, Your Honor. Their marriage is not relevant to this case.
Your Honor, this guy is on the stand. I was trying to ask him some questions. That's all I'm trying to do. Overruled. Now, Mr. Slot, even though you're divorced 2 years ago, you still remain very close friends, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, isn't it possible, Mr. Slot, that two people, even though they were close friends, they may not know everything about each other?
It's possible.
Okay. So, wouldn't it be possible to say, Mr. Slot, that Sharon may not know everything about you?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy?
Your Honor, I'm getting to a point here. Can I just make a couple more questions?
Overruled. Get to the point, Counselor.
Okay. Could you answer the question, please?
Restate it.
So it would be possible to say, Mr. Slot, that Sharon may not know everything about you.
I wouldn't say that. I'm a pretty simple person.
So she knows everything. Like how often you have sex with your wife, she knows that stuff too?
Objection, Your Honor.
He said he knows everything. I'm trying to figure out what he knows.
Case at hand.
Sustained.
Okay, thank you. So from your previous answer, Mr. Slot, that you said it would be possible that two people, even though they were close friends, wouldn't know everything about each other, wouldn't it be possible that you don't know everything about Sharon Slot? Wouldn't it be possible that you don't know she slept with her students?
It's possible.
Okay. Now, after the article concerning your ex-wife came out in the newsletter Our Voice, she called you right away.
Objection, Your Honor.
Question.
What's the question? It's been answered.
I want to know if she called him right away or if she waited a little bit.
Sustained.
Thank you.
Now, you stated in your affidavit that, quote, Sharon has confided in me with all the hurt and suffering has become of this article. Right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, after all of your years of knowing Sharon, 13 years, and after all of your years of loving Sharon, aren't you a biased witness, Mr. Slot? Did you ever talk to Mr. Studd's Muffin to find out his side?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I don't know the man.
Now, Mr. Slot, you have known and cared about Sharon Slot so long, it would almost be impossible to say anything bad about her, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't say that.
Is that a yes or no answer?
No.
Now, you love this woman. You have done anything for her. You probably still love her, and you still would do anything for her, wouldn't you?
Objection, Your Honor. Now, the counsel is speculating.
Withdrawn. No further questions.
We have no questions, Your Honor?
Mr. Slot, as Counsel Hines has stated, that you would say something bad about your ex-wife, Sharon Slot, if need be?
Objection, Your Honor. We did not redirect. She cannot recross.
Since she can bring no new evidence in, we ask no questions.
It was in the statement.
We ask no new questions.
Sustained, you may step down.
You may call your third witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to call Dr. Gregory Scott to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the court.
Dr. Gregory Scott, 555 West Main, Plattsburgh, Wisconsin.
What is your educational background, Dr. Scott?
Well, before being hired as the psychology department chairman in 1983, I was employed as a psychology professor at the Wisconsin State School of Psychology, and before that, I was attending for my doctorate degree at the University of Eastern Los Angeles, and before that, I had attended the University of North Virginia for 4 years.
Currently, what is your position at the University of Wisconsin-Plattsburgh?
I am the department chairman for the psychology.
And how long have you held this position?
For 10 years.
How many professors and staff do you supervise?
17.
Besides being the chairman for the psychology department, how else are you involved in your career?
Well, I
Your Honor, who cares what he writes? It's immaterial to this case. He is on the stand because he is the
Your Honor,
chairperson.
I'm just merely getting his character put together.
Sustained. Strike the question.
What is your relationship with the plaintiff, Sharon Slott?
We have worked together many times in the past 8 years that she's been employed at UW-PL because as a psychology professor, she's asked me many questions on things that come up in her classes and doing research and things like that, so we've got to know each other rather well.
When did you learn the article in the newsletter regarding the plaintiff?
That was February 12th, the evening that it was published. I was sitting in my office and had an issue dropped off.
Okay. Did you hear anything regarding the personal life of the plaintiff before the newsletter?
What I did hear was always positive comments saying what a nice person she is and how nice it is to work with her, things of that nature.
Okay, so before this date, what kind of remarks did you hear from students regarding the character of Professor Slott?
They were similar things. It was nice to be in her class. It was always enjoyable. She always had a new outlook and new way of teaching. That was fun.
And what type of evaluations did you receive after the newsletter?
After, anything that was written after was always those little comments that were kind of reference to negative things similar to what was written in the newsletter. Nothing that was very positive at all. It was just very slanderous.
Okay, and how did her coworkers treat her after the article was printed?
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation. He doesn't know. He was not a direct party.
Sustained.
Would you say that she was respected throughout the entire department?
Objection again. He doesn't know. This is speculation.
Sustained.
What type of evaluations have you received since the newsletter?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Okay, sustained. What has the department done regarding the article printed by Studs Muffin?
Well, the dean of the school has gotten together with myself and the chairperson from the communications department and has questioned the incident between us, and we had talked a lot about it, wondering about her character, because it has been an issue brought up through the circles.
Were you listening to the gripe line the evening that Professor Slott made the call?
No, I was not.
Have you heard any remarks about the call, the comments on the gripe line?
No, I did not.
What do you personally think about Professor Slott since the article?
I don't think any different of her now than what I ever did. I think she's very responsible. She's got a goal in her life, and she's really striving to make it there. She studies very hard, and she's a very a driven person. I look up to her highly.
No further questions.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench?
Will counsel please approach the bench?
that your opinion of Professor Slot has not changed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then why does it matter what the opinion of the others are? Aren't you the chair?
Yes, it is. Or yes, I am.
Professor Slot is a faculty member under your department. Is that true?
Yes.
Is it hard for you, in your opinion, to be biased about one of your faculty members?
I don't necessarily think it's hard for me to be biased, but when you know somebody like Sharon that has worked very hard to become what she is today, and knowing her, that's where it all comes from.
Okay, is it possible that if Professor Slot looks bad, like she does right now because of what happened, then you as a department chair look bad and this reflects on you?
Yes, it probably does reflect on me.
Is it possible that if you say anything bad about Professor Slot, then, you know, that'll affect you also?
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculation on the witness's part.
It's his opinion, Your Honor.
That's what speculation means.
So you agree that it is hard for you to say anything bad about a faculty member?
Not a faculty member.
A member under you? In your department?
I don't think it would be hard for me to say anything bad. It's hard for me to say something bad about Sharon, but not somebody else.
Why is that?
Because like I had stated earlier, that I look up to Sharon a lot just because of what she's done in her life and the things that she had to strive to become what she is today.
Okay. You stated that you have no relationship outside of work with Sharon, is that correct?
That's correct.
Unlike other students, did you ever have sexual relations with Sharon Slot?
No.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Professor, how are faculty evaluated in your department?
Well, they're evaluated both by the student and by myself. The students are, as any student would tell you, that at the end of every semester, they hand out an evaluation form, and it's a course of questions that are, some of them are multiple choice, and then there's also some fill in the blank, things that need to be improved, things you didn't like. And it's a similar situation as a department chairman that I would go through.
So gathering the opinion of faculty members of your department is a part of your job, and you would know whether or not the rest of the faculty thought ill of Sharon Slot. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
We have no questions, Your Honor. You may step down. Do you have any more witnesses?
No, we do not, Your Honor.
At this time, I would like to call a 5-minute recess. I will caution the jury that you are not to discuss this case amongst yourself, nor are you to discuss this case with anyone within or outside of this building. We will reconvene in 5 minutes. This court is now adjourned for recess.
Call Miss Sarah Lee to the stand. Could you please state your name and address for the court?
My name is Sarah Lee. I live at 30 South Chestnut, Plattsburgh, Wisconsin.
Could you describe for the court your relationship with Studs Muffin?
Yes, Studs Muffin and I grew up in the same town, Broadhead. It's a town of about 1,200 people. We went to grade school together, we went to junior high together, and we graduated from high school together. We wound up choosing Plattsburgh as the same college. We had 7 classes together. We have the same major, so we have a lot of our classes together. He's a very good friend of mine.
About how many classes have you had with Professor Sharon Slott?
I've had 7 classes with her.
Now, in Professor Sharon Slott's testimony, she said Studs came in and was going on about a relationship he had had.
Speculation. She wasn't there.
I'm purely bringing up testimony that's already been in to get to a question to see if her testimony is actually true.
How would the person on the stand, the witness, know that?
Let me ask the question, then you'll find out.
Overruled, ask the question, counselor.
Speeding it up, she said how Studs came in and he was asking about how he was to improve this long-term relationship. And since you are such a good friend of Studs, I'd like to know if he's ever had a long-term relationship with anyone.
He's had a long-term relationship in the past, but not recently, not in the past couple years.
So he's pretty much been without a girlfriend for 2 years.
Without a serious girlfriend, yes.
Okay, thank you. What, if any, differences did you see in the treatment between men and women by Professor Sharon Slott?
There were many differences. The men and the women were treated totally different. The women were always asked the tougher questions. She acted as if it was a chore to answer the women's questions. The men, on the other hand, she flirted with them. She was overly anxious to answer their questions and make social conversation with them. Classes with Professor Sharon Slott got to be more like social hour than educational hour.
Mm-hmm. So could you describe any other conduct of Sharon Slott's classes?
She liked to wink her eyelashes and toss her hair, and she would walk up close to the men in the class. Sometimes she'd put her arm around them. She's just overly friendly with the men.
Mm-hmm. Sarah Lee, have you heard the particular radio spot done by Professor Sharon Slott on Grapeline February 15th at 12 p.m.?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit 2, the script and the 30-second radio spot, which I would like to play for the jury in the court.
You may.
Our guest today is Professor Sharon Slott. Welcome, Professor Slott. What's your gripe?
I'd like to state that the newsletter, Our Voice, is a trashy rag that has no meaning to it whatsoever. Furthermore, editor Studs Muffin has no future in printing newsworthy material, and he better start working at McDonald's right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Slott, for your gripe. And that's Grapeline for today.
Miss Sarah Lee. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this Grapeline statement? Before you answer that, Miss Sharon Slott says it's a joke. It's merely a joke. Nobody listens to Grapeline. It's just a joke. What do you think of it? Do you think it's a joke?
Well, I was listening to Grapeline that day, and I don't think it was a joke. I think the only reason she called in was to get revenge on Studs Muffin, and I think it's pretty hard to take a professor like Sharon Slott seriously when she's calling and making these immature remarks.
So, Your Honor, she's calling for the opinion of the witness.
It's already answered. I don't think of objection.
I'd like to move it to strike.
Overruled. Miss Sarah Lee, do you have to take another class with Professor Sharon Slott?
No, I do not. I'm graduating in May.
If you had to take a class of Professor Sharon Slott's, would you?
Well, in most cases I don't have a choice because she's the only professor that teaches the class, and that's why I've had her for so many classes, but I have not enjoyed having her as a professor. It's very hard as a woman to compete in her classes.
Thank you, Sarah. Your witness, counsel.
Ms. Lee, you've mentioned pretty much repeatedly that you've known Mr. Muffin for quite some time.
Yes, I have.
We seem to be about the same age. We pretty much grew up together in the same generation. Do you recall the Sesame Street show, Which One of These Things Does Not Belong?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm
Who
getting to a
cares?
point, Your Honor.
Sesame Street
This
is
is
immaterial.
completely
I'm getting to a point,
immaterial.
Your Honor. Please allow me a little bit.
Overruled. Get to the point,
Thank you.
Counselor.
Let me just throw out a few things that has been thrown out in the earlier testimony about Mr. Muffin. Liberal, leftist, keeps trying to change the system. Shy. Anything strike you as odd out of that group?
Yes.
Care to tell me which one? Any inconsistencies there at all?
Oh, no, there's no
No
inconsistencies.
inconsistencies.
No.
Oh, okay. Could you describe your relationship in more detail?
Objection, asked and answered.
Was it a personal relationship? Did you just know him as someone who happens to be in a lot of your classes?
Objection, this has already been asked and answered.
I'm trying to establish,
Sustained, Counselor. Strike the question.
is your relationship with Studs Muffin a personal one?
It's already been asked
Sustained.
and sustained for that matter.
Are you sleeping with Studs Muffin?
No, I am not.
Do you think I should have asked that question?
Objection! It doesn't matter what she thinks about the questions.
I'm trying to prove, if it's not a legitimate question for me to ask of Miss Sarah Lee, why is it a legitimate question for them to have asked about Sharon Slott?
Overruled. Witness will answer the question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Do you think I should have asked that question? Is it any of my business whether or not you slept with Studs Muffin? Read off.
No, it's not your business.
Why is it anyone else's business if Sharon Slott has slept with someone?
Because Sharon Slott is a professor and she's giving out A's to men when they sleep with her. That's the difference.
Have you seen any evidence of this, or are you just speculating that there are A's given out for sleeping?
Have I seen evidence from the men that I've had in my classes? Most of them have gotten A's, yes. When I see them the next semester, I asked them what they received in the classes that we had with Professor Slott the semester before, and usually it's an A.
I see. So the guys seem to get the easier questions, and it's harder for women to do well in your courses, you feel?
In whose courses?
In Professor Slott's courses.
Objection, Your Honor. This has already been covered.
How have you done in Professor Slott's courses?
I received...
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is not on the
establishing
stand.
the credibility, how much she knows about Professor Sharon Slott and the grading scale.
Sustained. Strike the question, Counselor.
And what is your grade point average?
That is immaterial to this. She is not on.
I'm trying to see if...
She's not on trial
Your Honor,
here.
We've established that women get harder grades in this course. And we've also tried to establish that men get easy grades. She's a woman. She's had 7 courses of Sharon Slott. I'm trying to establish whether or not she got good grades.
Her grade point has nothing to do with this trial.
Sustained. Strike the question, Counselor.
Could you tell me a little bit about your affidavit? You mentioned that you've had her for 7 courses. Is that not correct?
Yes, it is.
In your affidavit, did you also mention that you have received 4 B's and 3 A's in her courses?
Objection. If you would have read the affidavit, it's 4 A's and 3 B's, not 4 B's and 3 A's.
Could the witness please tell me this?
Sustained. Please rephrase the question.
How many A's and how many B's did you receive in Sharon Slott's 7 courses?
I received 4 B's and 3 A's.
So I was right the first time.
Yes.
If I figured that out right, that's something like 3.4 average. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have gotten those kind of grades in classes. What's your overall GPA?
Your Honor, we have already established that this is not material to this case. Sarah Lee is not on trial.
Sustained.
In your affidavit, does it say that you have a 2.93 grade point average?
Your Honor, I motion to strike the question from the
question.
record because as you have just sustained that
I'm asking
question.
you to review her testimony in the affidavit.
Overruled. Counselor, if there is a direct question that has not already been asked and answered, please get to it.
How is it that you, after having said women have a very tough time getting good grades in your courses, in Professor Slott's courses, managed to pull a 3.4, a much higher grade point average, than in the rest of your courses, which is a 293. And if I'm not mistaken, it would be much lower if it wasn't for the fact that Professor Slott's grades pulled
Objection,
you up.
Your Honor, we have already determined that this
I wanna know how
witness
she
is
did it.
not on trial. Her grade point is not on trial. We've already determined that.
I'm trying to establish your
Overruled, she'll
credibility.
answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Could you repeat the question, please?
How did you manage to get a 3-4 in 7 courses of what you have said is very difficult for a woman to succeed in, and yet in other courses, which what I would assume are very normal and very reasonable professors, you can only pull a 293?
Well, in Professor Sharon Slott's classes, those are the classes that are required for my major, and those are the ones that I feel that I need to work the hardest at because they're the ones that interest me the most, and they're the ones that are going to pertain to my career in the future. Some of my general classes I slacked off and didn't do as well. My grade point average was also a little bit lower when I first entered college, and that is why my GPA is so low. In compared, my freshman year,
In your earlier years?
yes.
So there's no other reason you could have gotten a grade point average? Like maybe, are you sleeping with him? With her? No.
I don't think so.
Counselor, please wrap it up.
Miss Lee, you have mentioned that you have known Studs Muffin for a number of years, 10, maybe more. What exactly is it that makes you feel that you have any unbiased, any credible testimony for this court? No, I strike the question, Your Honor. She doesn't have to answer that. No question.
Sarah Lee, sorry for all of the confusion back and forth. Could you please restate how you know Studs Muffin in reference to your families?
I'm an only child, and Studs Muffin is like the brother that I never had. We grew up together, we've known each other, we're just very close.
And could you restate if you are or are not sleeping with Studs Muffin or Professor Sharon Slott?
I have not nor ever will sleep with Studs Muffin because I consider him too good of a friend, and I have never slept with Sharon Slott.
Thank you, Sarah.
Miss Lee, is there any way, after having known Studs Muffin for more than 10 years, that you could give completely objective, unbiased testimony?
Yes,
How?
because we are such good friends.
Thank you.
You may step down. You may call your second witness.
Your Honor, we would like to call Mr. Bud Light to the stand, please.
Go to it, Bud.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the court.
My name is Bud Light. I live in 214 Bach Hall, Plattsburgh, Wisconsin, 53800.
Bud, could you please describe your relationship with Professor Sharon Slott?
Professor Sharon Slott was a professor of mine in a few classes I've had, most recent being last semester, the fall semester of '92, of which at the time we were just friends, but things kind of got a little carried away. I'll get into detail about that incident. Basically, after an exam she passed back, I was concerned over a test grade I thought was a little low. So after class, I came up to her and I asked her, I just wanted to talk to her, why is this a little low? I feel I should have gotten a higher grade. And she goes, well, I can do you a little favor, or I can change this grade if you do me a little favor.
And what was that little favor?
Well, I didn't ask her that because she immediately took my hand, led me to a janitor's closet, which was unlocked, opened up the door, we went inside, shut the door, and we did our little thing.
And what would you say your little thing was?
That little thing was that we had sexual intercourse.
Bud Light, did your relationship with Professor Sharon Slott have any effect, if any, on your grades?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
A couple days later, I remember getting that test back, and it was an A.
It was an A.
After it was a C.
And how are your grades in other classes at UW-PL?
C's, straight C's.
And what type of grades did you get in Professor Sharon Slott's classes?
A's, no problem.
Bud, did you hear the particular radio spot done by Professor Sharon Slott on February 15th at 12 p.m.?
On Gripeline?
Grapevine, that would be it.
Yes, I have.
Can you state, in your opinion, what you thought of that particular 30-second radio spot?
Outrageous. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was obviously aimed to degrade Studs Muffin's credibility as a editor of a newspaper.
Exactly.
Newsletter, excuse me.
Are the facts in the article Sex, Lies, and Midterms true to your knowledge?
Most definitely.
And how do you know that these facts in the article Sex, Lies, and Midterms are true?
Because I'm a victim of her A for a lay grading scale.
No further questions. Your witness.
Mr. Light. Cash, your testimony. How did you know that it was a C before you got the test back?
We did get the tests back during the class. She handed them back, found it was a C. I thought I did a little better than that. Waited till after class to talk to her, and the story goes on.
Where are you from, Mr. Light?
Originally from Syracuse, New York.
You must have heard many positive things about Plattsburgh and all that it had to offer.
Most definitely.
Are you in any way involved in the Gripeline?
No, I'm not.
No.
However, I am a listener.
You are listening.
Yes.
Good. Would you say that the students of the University of Wisconsin-Platteville find this Gripeline entertaining?
Objection, Your Honor, it's Plattsburgh, not Plattsville.
So soon we forget.
Could you repeat that, please?
Would you say that the students at the University of Wisconsin-Plattsburgh find the Gripeline entertaining?
I don't know. I find it entertaining. I mean, I think, more so informative than entertaining.
Oh, entertaining! Entertaining, but yet informative. Such as shows like Sesame Street, right?
What do you mean by that?
Mr. Light, in your affidavit, you noted that you did your thing in the janitor's broom closet with Professor Sharon Slott.
Yes.
Is this correct, Mr. Light?
This is correct.
This is correct. Mr. Light, did you enjoy the sexual encounter?
Objection, Your Honor. This is totally immaterial if he enjoyed the sex or not.
I strike the question. Anyone would enjoy this?
Objection, Your Honor. Motion to strike her comment.
She could be in criminal contempt for that.
Bar her.
Would you choose to do your thing again with Sharon Slott?
No. However, let's put it this way. If I think I had a low test and she was more than willing, yes, I would. We would do the thing again. If it would make my grade from a C become an A automatically.
You have pretty high morals by doing this?
His morals are not on trial.
I find my grades very important to me, and whatever it takes.
If you found your grades so important, you would study, wouldn't you?
I have.
Is there anything
Objection, let him answer the question at least.
I have a hard time with school. I admit I do have C's and barely, but hey, if I'm getting A's with Professor Sharon Slott's classes, I mean, I'll certainly take her again. I'll do whatever it takes to get that A.
I'm sure you would. Was there anything odd or unusual about the Professor Slott that evening?
No, nothing unusual. She is unusual, but nothing unusual that night.
Understandable. Was there anything about Professor Slott's body? Any physical things that were unordinary, like birthmarks or tattoos?
Objection, Your Honor, it was probably dark. How would he know?
How do you know it was dark?
It's a broom closet with the door shut.
They have lights.
She said it was.
Your Honor! Your Honor! Your Honor! Your Honor!
Ask him in the courtroom now. Sustain. Strike the question.
Your Honor! We've already objected to this. You've already sustained it. The question is irrelevant. She can't ask it.
Sustained.
Is there anything that you noticed about Professor Slot that you didn't already know?
Objection, Your Honor. Isn't this the same thing over and over that it's been sustained?
Counselor, if you're talking physical, it's already been sustained.
I'm trying to establish that there is something significant about Professor Slot's childhood, about her childhood that affects her sexual performance.
Your Honor, this hasn't come up in the testimony beforehand. How would Mr. Bud Light know anything about Sharon Slot's childhood? And what relevance does that have to the case? This is purely speculation.
I'd like a minute with my counsel.
Counselor, may we continue, please?
This is the basis of our case, Your Honor, if we could just have a minute.
These statements don't need to be affidavit because they have personal private example. Just
Mr. Light, can you explain to the court in which position you had sex with the plaintiff?
Your Honor, this is immaterial to the case, what position they had sex in.
Your Honor, this is totally relevant to the case. Mr. Light has allegedly stated that he did have sexual intercourse with the plaintiff, and he felt it necessary to share it with the rest of Plattsburgh. So why wouldn't it be necessary to know a little bit about what happened that night?
Because it's immaterial.
Overruled. The witness will answer the question. Repeat it, Steph. Does counselor have a problem with the judgment?
Yes.
She will be held in contempt of court if she does not be quiet.
I apologize, Your Honor.
Apology accepted. Witness will answer the question.
I'll repeat the question. Can you explain to the court in which position that you and the plaintiff had sexual intercourse?
Which position?
Is it the missionary, man on top, woman on top?
It was the woman on top.
The woman on top. Were you aware that it is medically impossible for Sharon to have intercourse in that position that you described because of a
Objection,
child?
Your Honor. The witness would be giving an opinion which he is not an expert to give.
Apparently, if he had sex with Sharon Slot, he is an expert.
That doesn't make him an expert. Does not make him an expert. We
This is
object.
totally immaterial. So, were you aware?
It's just been sustained, counsel.
Were you aware of the burn mark on the plaintiff's body before you had sex with her?
It wasn't visible.
It wasn't visible. No further questions.
Bud Light, sorry to put you through this.
No problem.
Did you have sex in any other positions?
Oh, yeah, we moved around, you could say, I guess.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Mr. Light, did you or did you not hear the counsel say it is medically impossible
Your
for
Honor.
Sharon Slot to
It was
have
strike
sex
from
in
the-
that position?
Wait, I object. This is beyond the scope of the redirect. Yeah.
No, it's...
She only asked one question. No further questions.
Further recross questions, counsel? You may step down. You may call your third witness.
Your Honor, our third witness is Studs Muffin.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please state your name and address for the court.
My name is Studs Muffin. I live at 31 East Main, Plattsburgh, Wisconsin.
And Studs, could you describe your relationship with Professor Sharon Slott?
I had her in a number of classes, 7 consecutively. I don't have her this semester.
What type of grades did you receive in Sharon Slott's classes?
All A's.
How hard did you work for those A's?
Not as hard as I had to in other classes.
May I ask what kind of grades you got in other classes?
It varied, B's, C's, sometimes an A.
What? Sometimes an A. Were these usually easier classes or harder classes that you received the A's that were not Professor Sharon Slott's classes?
Well, it took less work in Sharon's classes to get an A.
Could you describe the events that took place on February 5th, 1992?
Well, I was working in the photo lab on the 8th floor of the tower. And at about 6:30 p.m., Professor Slott came to my darkroom door and asked me if I would come to her office. She said that she had job opportunities to talk to me about, and I don't know, she just wanted to talk to me about some things. And so I went to her office. And when I walked in, she closed the door behind me. And she started moving closer and closer to me and talking about her ex-husband and how upset she was about her recent divorce and about how she was stressed and not very happy with her life right now. And she kept moving closer and closer. And she made me feel very uncomfortable. And I'm not very assertive around females, and I'm kind of shy. And I tried to keep her off, but she kept moving closer, and I couldn't say no. And
What are you referring to here, Studs?
well, we ended up doing the thing.
What is your thing exactly?
Sexual intercourse.
How do you feel about having sexual intercourse with Professor Sharon Slott?
Not very good.
Why did you decide to write the article, Sex, Lies, and Midterms?
Because after this happened to me, I found out, because I worked with Bud Light, basically through channels that he had kind of a fling with her too. And I decided that was something worth writing about, something worth looking into. Because I'm trying to set up an expose on like professors' ethics. I'm going to have other articles planned. And so I decided to look into this. So I interviewed people that I knew were in her class, and I found 6 other men who had had sex with her, who gave me testimony to that fact. I called Professor Slott twice to get her comments on it, and she refused to comment. So I also talked to other females, and they had a lot of negative things to say about the professor as well, and I thought it was very newsworthy. Any professor who is having sex with their students, giving them grades based on how they look, how they perform sexually, whatever, or whether or not they have sex with her, I think is something very newsworthy.
So, based on that testimony, all the statements in the article are true.
To the best of my knowledge.
And how do you feel about getting a job after graduation?
Well, I'm apprehensive like any college student is. Up until the time when I heard this 30-second spot, I was worried, but now, if any future employer heard that, they obviously are going to look down on me. My peers already look down on me, faculty look down on me. I've lost sources for other stories I had planned. I've lost credibility as a journalist this semester still. And I'm graduating in May.
Is it true, Studs, that there are often dozens, maybe 2 dozens of recruiters on campus most every day?
Oh, yes.
So then it is possible that perhaps one of those recruiters heard Gripeline that day?
Oh, anybody could have.
And so it is possible that you are maybe suffering a job because you should be working at McDonald's.
It's very possible I could not get a job.
In your opinion, Studs Muffin, do you feel that the article Sex, Lies, and Midterms is of legitimate concern on a college campus like Plattsburgh, the extremely liberal environment that we are all here?
Objection, Your Honor. She's calling for speculation. He is in no way an expert on the student body at Plattsburgh University.
Your Honor, I'm merely asking him if he feels it's newsworthy. He's already stated that. I'm stating, once again, it's in the statute 942.01 that they're suing us for, that we are supposed to be in community standards. A college campus is a little out of the realm of community standards. Most college campuses celebrate diversity, liberal arts. They're very liberal. It's extremely liberal experience.
It's sustained, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have no further questions. You're a witness.
Mr. Muffin, for the court, could you please state what you do on campus outside of the realm of going to classes?
I'm the editor, and I also write for the newsletter Our Voice.
So, that would make you a media figure, wouldn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculation. He may not be aware of the criteria that is needed for a public figure.
Being in journalism for so long, I believe he must know.
That makes him no expert. He has no degree in this.
Sustained. Strike the question, Counselor.
A witness for you just stated that you were the editor. I believe you are a media figure. I would like to
Objection, Your Honor.
I
Strike that from the record.
Strike. Apologize. I would like to clarify something. Just now in your testimony, you stated that it was easier to get A's in Professor Slatt's classes, but yet your testimony seems to pull to the effect that the first time you had sex with Professor Slatt was on the 8th floor tower, and it had nothing to do with any classes. So, what did you mean by it was easier getting grades in her classes?
Well, she was flirtatious with me in every class I had her in. I never had sex with her until last semester. I did not have class with her then, but it was easier getting A's in her class, and she was very flirtatious with me.
Easier by whose means and standards, Mr. Muffin?
Excuse me?
Easier by whose means and standards?
Easier.
Objection, Your Honor.
Easier to get...
Restate the question so the witness can understand it.
It was easier to get good grades in Professor Sharon Slatt's classes than others. How are you weighing this?
How am I weighing
Your
my
opinion,
decision on that?
her classes were easier, harder?
On my own decision. In my own experience, I had these classes.
Mr. Muffin, what types of research did you do for this article?
I interviewed at least 25 different people who were in her classes, men, women. I found 6 men who had had sex with her besides Bud Light and myself.
If you felt it so prudent to put Professor Slatt's name in this article, and these other 6 students were very happily and ready to tell you that they did have sex with her, why didn't you put their names in this article?
Well, it seems obvious to me that any student who makes a statement like that is going to be held in somewhat of a bad light by either faculty. The statements are truth.
Can you please answer the first question that she asked him in entirety?
What was?
Was you just said that you were afraid to put any of the students in bad light with any of their peers.
I answered that question.
Faculty. So, why weren't you worried about putting Professor Slott in bad light with her peers?
So are you asking me to answer the first question over
I would
again?
like you to answer both of them, please.
I already answered the first question.
Please, witness, just re-answer the question.
Okay. I feel that a student who has had sex with a professor and puts their name on their statement is putting themselves in a bad light because they have to deal with ridicule from other students, with the potential of other faculty members looking down on them because of what they've said about another one of the faculty. I don't think that any student need put themselves through that. They're not going to be looked on very positively by other faculty members, probably not by other students.
But it's okay for a student to put faculty in that light.
Objection, Your Honor. It's already been stated in testimony that he is working on an expose of articles of professor ethics.
Sustained. Did you contact Professor Slott?
Objection, Your Honor. Sir. He already testified to that in his testimony when I questioned him.
Sustained.
I apologize. I forget his answer. I would like it restated for myself and the court, please.
Objection, Your Honor. It's already been asked and answered.
Did you try to contact Professor Slott about this article?
Twice.
And what were the results of that?
She never wished to make any response.
Meaning you did not get a hold of her at all, or you called her?
I got a hold of her.
Now, if you got a hold of her and she had no response, why didn't you put that in your article to let everyone else know that she did know what was going to be put in the article and she did have a comment or no comment?
I felt no responsibility to do that.
No responsibility. If you thought that this article was so newsworthy and didn't intend to hurt Professor Slott, you could have ran this story without a faculty name. You could have used faculty.
Objection, Your Honor. Once again, it's been stated in his testimony he's working on an expose of articles on professor ethics. Just as we read in other newspapers about their names have to be there, they are in the limelight, they are limited.
It has been established that you and Professor Slott have had sex, so why didn't you print that? Wouldn't that be invading your privacy then?
I don't understand that question.
You don't understand the question. Mr. Muffin, if you would have printed your own name, wouldn't that have been invading your privacy?
If I had printed my own name.
Your Honor, I don't believe it's a difficult question.
How can I invade my own privacy?
What was your reason for not putting your name and your? It would have made
Objection, Your Honor. She is badgering my witness.
I rephrased the question.
Overruled. Counsel, please rephrase the question.
I believe, and I'm asking for your opinion.
Objection. Who cares what she believes?
Overruled.
Wouldn't the story have been more credible if you, the editor-in-chief and writer of this article, would have said that, yes, I have had sex with Professor Slott, and this does go on campus. First-hand experience. Why didn't you put that in there?
Objection, Your Honor. I'd like her to restate the question because this will be his opinion. So in order for this question to be valid, we would like you to restate the question and put in there that this is his opinion.
Overruled, and please let's wrap it up.
Why are you here on trial?
Objection, Your Honor. He's not on trial.
He is on trial. He's the defendant. He was brought to trial. He is also bringing countersuit.
Thank you. He's not on trial.
Why are you here?
I'm accused of libel and invasion of privacy.
Why are you bringing countersuit? If I'm correct, you're afraid that you won't get a job out of college because of this 30-second tape. Are you not happy with what you did, with what you've done the past 4 years in college, that a possible employer might overlook this 130-second spot? You started a news article. What
Objection, Your Honor,
were
she's
you?
badgering the witness.
Sustained, Counselor.
Please answer my question. Why are you afraid?
It was sustained, and Counselor, your time is up for cross-exam.
No redirect.
You may sit down.
You may step down.
Do you have any more witnesses?
No, we do not.
Would the plaintiffs please give their closing arguments?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on the surface, we have what may seem a fairly simple case. An invasion of privacy, mind you that an invasion of privacy, as well as libel, and an invasion of privacy, truth is not a defense. But if you look closer, things can be different. On the surface, defendant, poor, innocent, Studs Muffin, is being sued by the plaintiff or prosecution, University of Plattsburgh psychology and communication professor Sharon Slott. But in reality, who is defending themselves here, and whom is prosecuting whom? Professor Slott has had her personal private life, a life that is guaranteed to stay personal and private by the 14th Amendment, maliciously invaded. Not Mr. Muffin. And please bear in mind, as recently as last year, the state of Wisconsin found in the verdict of City News versus the City of Waukesha that personal intimacies of public figures are protected by that 14th constitutional amendment. What went on, wherever it went on, certainly sounds like a personal intimacy to me. Professor Slott has also had her reputation stained by the libelous publication of our voice. Not, once again, Mr. Muffin. I think, if you look closely, it's fairly easy to see who's defending themselves from an unwarranted attack and who has attempted to be the prosecution. Mr. Muffin's counsel has attempted to prove that Slott's commentary on the gripe line has in some way damaged his reputation, but they've failed to produce any credible witnesses who have even heard of this spot, let alone thought less of him because of it. Without exception, all of their witnesses are friends of Mr. Muffin who have proven they will do anything to protect him, even lie about who they slept with, since we've established it was medically impossible for her to have sex in the manner which Bud Light claims. And indeed, would not those prospective employers who had heard this radio comment look closely at his coverage of this issue and find that if he had indeed acted in a responsible manner, that they would approve and therefore value his employment highly? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, poor, innocent, shy, and unassuming Mr. Studs Muffin is not a freshman just dipping his toes into the journalism waters. He is a graduating senior. In just 4 days, he will walk across some stage, shake someone's hand, and accept a diploma. In just 4 days. He will soon begin, if he has not begun already, to market himself as a professional journalist. His days in the classroom are over, and yet, sadly, he has left some lessons unlearned. You can't go around nosing into people's private lives and printing articles, or more appropriately, stories about personal happenings. To do so is more than illegal. Illegal is 62 and a 55. Illegal is your dog without a leash. To print half-truths and libelous comments about professional individuals' private lives is more than illegal. It's just plain wrong. And that is something that Studs Muffin better damn well learn if he's going to make it in the professional journalism world. As you deliberate on the facts of this case, picture yourself with that cup of coffee and that front page on Friday morning and reading about your own sex lives on the front page. Now picture yourself getting in your car, driving to the office. You enjoying that thought? Now picture yourself making contact with your coworkers. You're going to do that for the rest of your lives. And please keep in mind that even if you find no physical damage to Professor Sharon Slott's reputation, she is entitled to a monetary award for her mental suffering, which she has obviously undergone. Ladies and gentlemen of this court, when you leave the courtroom tonight, you will have taught Studs Muffin one final lesson. It's up to you what that lesson will be. He will either learn that it's okay to violate the personal lives of others and to make up stories about people, because that right, the right of privacy, which we knew as privacy, has been trampled out of existence by the sensationalistic media such as Mr. Studs Muffin. Or, if you choose, you will learn that the right of privacy, the right to be left alone, is the right to have your personal affairs, your private matters, stay personal, stay private, is an inalienable right that must be extended to all and abridged for none. Please, please, do not let one more graduate of Yellow Journalism School graduate without teaching him one final lesson that he will not forget. Thank you.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard a lot of testimony tonight, and now it's your job to sort through all of it and get to the truth. And tonight, the truth is what was important. In the past few hours, the defense has attempted to show you the truth. And now you should know in your minds that what Mr. Studs Muffin wrote in his newsletter was the truth. And ladies and gentlemen, the truth is always, always of legitimate public concern. In order for the plaintiff's attorneys to prove that Studs Muffin invaded their client, Sharon Slott's privacy, by disclosing private facts, they had to prove tonight that Studs Muffin's article was, according to Wisconsin statute number 895.50, that number one, it was highly offensive to a reasonable person. Number two, that Studs Muffin acted unreasonably or recklessly in publishing the article. And number three, there was no legitimate public interest in the facts of the article. Ladies and gentlemen, they have proven none of these things. Studs Muffin, as the good, fair, and accurate reporter and editor that he is, researched his story thoroughly. He had a plethora of sources. He testified he had over 20 sources. He had first-hand knowledge of Professor Slott's practice of having sex with students, because he himself was one of the students that Sharon Slott seduced. Even Sharon Slott freely admits she and Mr. Muffin had sex. Studs Muffin did not act recklessly when he was writing this article, and what he printed was of legitimate public concern because it was the truth. It was about the unrespectable and morally wrong issue of professors having sex with students. At this point, I'd like to mention the 1988 case of the state of Wisconsin versus Peck. Under this decision concerning right to privacy, it said, and I quote, "An individual's right to privacy is not absolute, since it may be outweighed by compelling societal interests," unquote. Wouldn't you want to know if your son or daughter were part of such a horrible system of professors giving students better grades if they had sex with that professor? Ladies and gentlemen, if you find for the plaintiff in this invasion of privacy suit, you will be guaranteeing the press does not have the right to expose the truth. You will be guaranteeing you will be completely discounting the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom to the press. You will be completely discounting Wisconsin Statute 895.50, which guarantees that Studs Muffin, quote, has the freedom to communicate true facts through the media, unquote. And as to their claims that Studs Muffin libeled Sharon Slott, they have absolutely no grounds for prosecution because substantial truth of statements made in an article is an absolute defense to a libel claim. This was proven in 1977 in Schaefer versus the State Bar of Wisconsin and was upheld in 1986 by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, and I quote, "A private figure plaintiff who is suing a media defendant for publishing a defamatory statement of public concern cannot recover damages without showing that the statement at issue is false." Ladies and gentlemen, find Studs-Muffin innocent of invasion of privacy and find him innocent of libel. Now, there's a second part to this case, and that is Sharon Slott's slanderous remarks about Mr. Studs-Muffin on her 30-second radio spot. Members of the jury, it doesn't matter how long the radio spot was. What does matter is what was said. Sharon Slott said in that radio spot, and I quote, "I'd like to state that the newsletter, Our Voice, is a trashy rag that has no meaning whatsoever. Furthermore, editor Studs-Muffin has no future in printing newsworthy material and better start working at McDonald's now," unquote. Because of these statements, Mr. Muffin testified he fears not getting a future job, that he has lost valuable sources, and that his credibility as a journalist has been destroyed because of Sharon Slott's defamatory remarks. According to Wisconsin Statute 942.01, defamatory matter is, quote, anything which exposes the other to hatred, contempt, ridicule, degradation, or disgrace in society or injury in his business or occupation, unquote. What happened to Studs-Muffin as a result of these slanderous statements made by Sharon Slott completely fulfills that statute. And Muffin is not a public figure that opened himself up to fair comment. He is merely a college student who heads a newsletter. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Sharon Slott clearly slanders Studs-Muffin, and it is up to you, as members of the jury, to punish her for it and find her guilty. Thank you.
Jury, you will begin your deliberation according to Wisconsin Statute 895.50, the right of privacy, and Wisconsin Statute 942.01. Please carefully weigh the testimony of the witnesses and the evidence submitted. Also, please pick a foreperson to read the verdict. The bailiff will lead you out. This court is adjourned for deliberation. Has the jury reached its final verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
With the verdict, the jury answered a few questions, the first of which was the defendant Studs-Muffin and the others unreasonably published private facts, even if they were true. The jury answered yes. Since they answered yes, they had to ask, was there damages? Their answer was yes. What are the damages that will fairly loss and reasonably compensate the plaintiff, Sharon Slott, for her loss? They fined for attorney fees, court fees, and damages. The jury has ruled for the plaintiff for $40,000. The counterclaim. For the counterclaim, the jury found in favor of Professor Slott. They found no slander.
Quiet in the courtroom, please. Would the attorneys like the jury polled?
Yes. Juror number 1, Alan Bruce, do you agree with this verdict?
No.
Juror number 2, Stephanie Sabo, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 3, Daryl Squall, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 4, Tanya Nelson, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, Bernie Harris, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, Mike Gray, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 7, Don Berger, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, Karen Bennett-Allen, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, Robert Conway, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, Sandra Stacy, do you agree with this verdict? Yes. Juror number 11, Tunde Pham, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, Pat Doyle, do you agree with this verdict?
Yes. Thank you, jury, for your cooperation and participation in this trial. This court is now dismissed.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just another minute, please. Dr. Kowal? I do believe the real person put on trial for the past 2 weeks has been Dr. Kowal. The group, all of us, we would like to thank Dr. Kowal for putting up with us, helping us. Most of us were in the library until midnight. Many nights she was there with us. What can we say? Thanks.
I think they've done a hell of a job for 2 weeks of preparation. Please give them the hand.